Hello, Year 3. This is our last RE lesson for this half term. And last week, we thought quite a bit about what Christians believe Jesus said about how people should treat their enemies. And if you remember from last week, Christians believe that Jesus's message was that we should love our enemies, which is quite a difficult thing to get your head around. Anyway, this week, I thought that we would think about what it means to love your neighbour. Now, lots of religions around the world, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism and Buddhism, as well as people who are not religious at all, believe that it's very important to show love to your neighbour. So I thought we'd think a little bit more about that today. Now, the first thing that I want to think about and would like you to think about is, who is your neighbour? When we talked about this, when we've talked about this before, we talked about the fact that your neighbour, people think that your neighbour is somebody who lives next door to you, but in actual fact, your neighbour could be the person who sits next to you in class. It could be somebody who lives in the same town as you. If you think about countries, your neighbouring country is the country that's next to you. So who your neighbour is really, really depends on what kind of an area you're thinking about. So that was the first thing I wanted to think about. Now, today's story is one of my most favourite stories ever. And it's by a writer called Oscar Wilde, who died a long time ago. So he was around in the Victorian age, and he wrote some stories for adults, and he wrote plays, and also he wrote lots of stories for children. And the story that we're going to look at today is one of his children's stories. And I think it's a really brilliant sort of a story about how love can be shown to neighbours and what that might actually mean. So I'm just going to go forward onto here. So this story is called The Happy Prince. And you can see from the pictures, these are some pictures, some illustrations from different versions of the story. So the story starts with a very, very beautiful golden statue. And he's in the middle of the town square in Pride of Place, and he's covered in gold from head to foot. Whoops, I'm going back that way. And he's got jewels and emeralds and things. He's a very important and beautiful statue. And then the other main character in the story is this creature here, and this is a little bird called a swallow, and you can tell it's a swallow because of that beautiful V-shaped tail. And swallows come to England during our summer to have babies and to nest, but they don't like the very cold weather, so they've come all the way from Africa. They migrate. It still amazes me to think that a tiny little bird like this can actually make it across the ocean without sleeping or stopping, flying all the way with nowhere to land. I mean, it's a mystery to a lot of scientists as well how they do it. So this is a migratory bird that comes to England in the summer and then has to fly back to Africa in the winter because they can't survive the cold winters here. They're just not adapted to survive in the cold. And there's another picture of the Happy Prince over on this side. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause this video now. And on the VLE, you'll also find the slideshow that I'm using. And if you open the slideshow and you click on the link, you will be able to watch the video of the story. So I'd like you to pause the video and go and watch the story and then restart the video after you've done that. Hello again, if you've just come back. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I wonder if, like me, you find it a very, very sad story. So I love that story, but I do find it ever so sad because the little swallow makes such a huge sacrifice in staying behind to help the prince. And the prince himself makes a huge sacrifice because he gives away everything he has to help his neighbours in the city. So, and what I love about this story is I think it really gives us lots of ideas about what it means to what a neighbour is. So for the prince, his neighbours are all the people in the city that he can see suffering, but he can't help. And for the swallow, first of all, the prince is her neighbour because she stays to help him. And then as time goes on, the people in the city become her neighbours as well. And she becomes completely involved herself in trying to help as many people as possible. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I've got some questions here for you. So the black typing are the questions. And what I quite like you to do is find a piece of paper and see if you can write some of your own answers to those questions. If you're a bit stuck with how to start your sentences, I've given you some red sentence frameworks really, so that you could use that sentence and put your own ideas into it. So you can write your own sentence completely if you want to. At the bottom, there is a question about whether you liked the story and explaining why or why not. And the very last sentence starter is a sentence starter saying, how could you in your life, how could you show love for your own neighbour? Who might that be? It might be someone in your family or the person you sit next to at school, or it might be somebody that you know in your wider community. It might be helping a charity, because actually you might think about our neighbours as being people that you don't know, but who you'd still like to help. And if you want to do any drawings if you want to do some artwork, you could print out the slide with the pictures on and colour it in, or even better, you could do your own illustration of the story and picture to go with it. I hope you enjoyed that story, and I'll see you soon, Year 3. Let's see if I can do this.